Hello, and welcome to another episode of D.U.M Talks. I'm your host, Dan Mitchem. All right, and up next we have Isaac. How's it going, man?
Hey, I'm good. It's great to be here with you, kind of. I feel your energy. I know you're there, and I know you're with me right now, but it's really good. It's really good to hear your voice. I haven't talked to you in, man, I don't know how many months now. Like, I've seen you online, but like, I used to see you at the park all the time, and now we're not there anymore. So,
Yeah, I'm like Luke Skywalker. You can feel my presence.
yes,
Hear me, you just can't quite see me.
I know. Yeah, that's the perfect way. Yeah, I'm in Star Wars mode right now lately. So, with Mandalorian and all that. So, I love that you just said all that.
Very nice. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about voiceover work.
Yay.
Tell me about that. How did you get started, or when and how?
That is an awesome question. How it happened, I really can't explain the real genesis of it. The version that I tell is that I started doing voices when I was literally like 2 or 3 years old. My mom told me that I would imitate everything that I heard all the time. And I knew that. I knew I was doing that. I was aware. I watched Muppet Babies when I was a kid. And so I would imitate Baby Gonzo's voice and I would imitate my mom's voice. And really, it's just, I loved sound so much. I loved music and I loved instruments and just anything that hit me in a really cool way, sound wise, was just instantly fascinating to me. And I really can't explain why that was. I remember that my mom has a couple stories about when there was one time apparently I was running around the living room saying something nonsensical, but because I couldn't really talk yet, but the inflections were consistent every time. She noticed I was saying the same thing, just I couldn't really say it at all. At one point, I happened to be saying that, and then the Little Mermaid happened to be on at the same time. And my mom put the dots together and, oh, he's performing Poor Unfortunate Souls right now, but he just can't sing the song. But that's what he's doing because the same waves of the music of the speech of Ursula's talking and singing, that's what I was doing, but I just couldn't say the words yet. So that was kind of the beginning of it all, I guess.
Nice.
And then, yeah, after that, I would just, I sang as a kid and I still sing now. And I would keep copying stuff. And it really was just a hobby of mine. I really didn't think of it as a serious job until about high school when I kind of became known as the guy that did voices. That's was kind of my icebreaker after a while. It was originally doing magic tricks. I still love magic, but when my friends noticed that I could do voices, they started to laugh and respond in a way that I didn't expect. And then I was like, oh, this is interesting. I didn't realize that this thing I did with my brother, just making up stuff and having fun with the voices, was a thing other people like too. So I kind of thought about it more. Then the real epiphany came when it was about, I think a few years later, I think like my senior year of high school, I was watching The Simpsons one Sunday. And then on the other channel on Bravo, they just happened to have an episode of Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton. I don't know if you've seen that or
Yeah.
not. Yeah, interview show with actors. And they were interviewing the cast of The Simpsons. So I was like, whoa, this is Simpsons overload. This is awesome. I love the show. But then when I watched it, the minute that I saw, and also as just also backstory, I grew up doing theater and musical theater. And so I've been on stage ever since I can remember because my
Yeah.
mom was involved in theater. And so she kind of introduced me to it. And I've been hooked ever since. When I saw that episode of Inside the Actors Studio, I watched these human beings create these voices that I knew so well that were so recognizable and full of life. And it was, to me, it was, speaking of magic, it was the best trick I'd ever seen. I cannot believe these sounds are coming out of these people right now. And then
Yeah.
that's when I sort of really got it. Oh, there are people that do the voices and they're on this thing and that's a job. Everything just kind of came together in a split second. Okay, I understand now what I have to do with my life.
You found your calling.
I did. Oh, I get it now. I understand everything. Not everything. I don't pretend to understand everything. I'm always learning, but it was just so miraculous to know that it was a real thing and this is something that people could pursue as an art because no one really talked about it in high school or anywhere around me. Like voiceover wasn't even a concept that was ever discussed by anyone that I knew, at least. After that moment, I was like, oh, okay, all right, I see what I have to do. After that, I went to UC Irvine to get my theater degree and did that, which was great. And I learned a ton and grew so much as an actor. But all throughout, I was doing research and auditions and like just trying to connect to people and figure out like, how does this work? And what do you do? And what microphone do I get? And what voices do people like the most? All these things I had to learn. But yeah, that was the basis of where it all began.
Very nice. What did you do after that? Did you just kind of go out and anytime you found a voiceover audition, you would submit for it? Did you do any networking or anything like that?
Yeah, so basically, it kind of was a weird, kind of organic journey, I guess. Basically, what happened was in college, I kind of just made myself known as somebody that was interested in it and that did it. And did the same thing I did in high school. I did a bunch of voices all the time for people. I started to refine it a little bit more. I started to figure out what microphones were, not like what they are, but like what they can do, how they help the voice, how they amplify it, how editing works. I started taking classes actually. I took some commercial classes to try to figure out how that happens. I learned very quickly that doing impressions was not the key. The key is to be good at acting because that's why it's called voice acting. So
Yeah.
that was a tough lesson to learn, but it was good that I got it, and I got it pretty cold. I went to a class, I was like, "I'm ready to do it. I can do all these voices." And the teacher I was with, she's like, To be honest, you're not really ready for a demo," which is the next step to being a voice actor is getting a demo to showcase what you can do.
Yeah.
So I started to take classes to learn, but then the real beginning started when, again, completely by accident, I was started working at Disneyland in 2010 as a character host. There was a flyer in the break room for voice acting, and I was like, "This is amazing! I can't believe that I'm here." And and it said, this time and sign up online because Disneyland does this really cool thing where they offer classes for people in the arts to learn about different pieces of the art world, so like dance or singing
Oh, cool.
or choreography, and it's all for free for cast members that are in the entertainment department.
Wow.
I was very, very, very not. I started off in what I felt pretty low on the totem pole as far as being in the entertainment department there, but it was really cool that this opportunity presented itself. And so I went and took the class, and it was led by the casting director for Walt Disney Imagineering. His name is Brian.
Mhm.
After that class, I emailed him literally every 2 weeks. And I was like, "Hey, Brian, just wanted, let you know that I'm still here and I loved what you did. And I just want to see if you have any auditions or any opportunities for me to become part of projects because I am very serious about this work."
Yeah.
We began a friendship and he started sending me auditions. We started to meet in person. And then in my last year of college, I was on my way to Spanish class because I didn't fulfill my Spanish requirements in high school. That was a mistake. So trying to do Spanish at 9 a.m. is not easy.
No. Trying to do anything at 9 a.m. isn't easy.
I know. Yeah. So I went to the class and I opened my email like I did every morning just to check and see like assignments or whatever. And I saw an email from Brian. I was like, "Well, that's interesting. Okay, I'll open this up." The email said, "Hey, Isaac, it's Brian. I just wanted to let you know that I have a job, a voiceover job for Walt Disney World for a project I'm working on called Agent P's World Showcase Adventure. It's a mobile game you play while you're in Epcot and it interacts with the different pavilions and things happen, open up, light up, things like that. It's just this fun interactive adventure. I'd love to
Okay.
use you for the show, and would you like to do it?" And I said, "Absolutely." And that was my first professional voiceover job ever. And I can't believe that was the one. So I got to go to Imagineering and I got to meet with Brian again and I got to record it there. And he really started my whole career. That was my first job. And then after college, it was just hitting the pavement, going from there to do more.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a few of the other things that you've voiced?
Yeah. Well, I've done Final Fantasy VII, the remake. I did a bunch of characters in that.
Nice.
The Marvel Avengers game that came out. I am Theo the Portal guy in that game. If he shows up, I think you have to meet up with him, so you'll hear him at some point. There's a show on Netflix called Voltron, and I am the voice of Adam. You discover Shiro's boyfriend. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the show, but it's in his backstory. We learn about his relationship and his boyfriend, and that's who I play in the show, and that was really amazing. Probably one of the most significant with Disney has been I got to be the voice of the New Year's Eve countdown for 2019 into 2020. I'm so sorry that 2020 was the year that I rung everybody into at Disneyland, but you know, I didn't know it was happening, but I was like, "This is crazy!" But it was really amazing to me because Disneyland Park means a lot to me for a lot of reasons, and so my friend was really kind and got a video of the night, and just to know that my voice was at the castle, on Main Street, over by Small World, like everywhere in the park, and that was me. I was the first announcement people were hearing going into 2020. Is really, really cool. So that was pretty incredible. And I've done a bunch of announcements for Disney for the parks and for rides and attractions around the world actually now. So I've been very grateful for that. A couple of which I would love to talk about, but unfortunately I can't yet.
Mum's the word for right now.
Yes, Mum's the word. Exactly. I did a commercial for Fisher Price that's out right now that's pretty fun. I play a baby that drowned in a dog bowl. They're talking to their master, who they call Skyhand, and it's actually the baby that's playing with these dolls, one of which I play.
Oh,
And so that was really fun. And I've done some stuff for friends. I've done a lot of really fun projects throughout just years of not things through my agent. So that's been really fun. I never really turned down a job, really. I really like to work quite a bit.
oh yeah. I am going to bring you and Cole back to talk about your podcast, but that's another
Yeah.
thing you're doing a voice of. Do you want to talk just real quickly on that? And then again, we'll get in more
Yeah.
detail in the other episode.
Yeah, sure. So there's this really great opportunity, and this is kind of cool and a lesson in time, I think. because Cole, our good friend, introduced me to this show idea that he had called Thrillergram, which is a super, it's just a brilliant callback to 19 like 40s 50s radio shows where like everything was built around your imagination. There's nothing visual, but the way that it's sound designed, the way that it's written so well, and the way that he casts his actors so precisely to each role. He just builds these worlds, and he write a lot of these stories are original. Some of them are based on other material, but he makes them his own. So I play Floyd Ferguson, who's the narrator on the show. It's been an honor for me because he said, "Can you do kind of a Twilight Zone-ish kind of voice for this?" Sent it back to me, and then 3 years later, he said, "Hey, so remember that thing you did for me? We're gonna do something with it now." So now I play Floyd Ferguson on Thrillergram, and it's really fun.
Yeah, yeah, I was checking out a few of the episodes. I couldn't even believe that was you doing the voice.
Yeah, I'm glad I could still do it. I'm glad that he still has me in. And it's kind of neat because he modeled Floyd after my likeness. He didn't have to, but the poster art for it is kind of a version of my face, which is kind of neat. So
Oh, nice.
it's just really fun. I just love every time I get a script, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens. But yeah, more to come with that.
Now, when you were first starting off, did you ever make your own voiceover demo reel?
Yes, I did. And it was fine, but not good enough to have me competitive. And when I talk to people about voiceover and making their own demos, I learned early on, but this is something I tell people now is it's fine to do it if it's really competitive to the point where it feels like it sounds like the other commercials that are on the air or the other voiceover work that's out there. I did. I made my own, my own music and my own copy that I had. And it was okay. It wasn't great, but it was something that I at least had to just say, hey, I do this. And then, but what really changed the game was I took it to, I will praise his name forever. His name is Chuck Duran, and I took my demo that I'd made to him. He did not like it. And he said, here's what we're going to do to make it better. He sat me down and he really went through what products I would be good to sell, what my voice would match and what things would be good, to show me off in my range and all this detailed stuff over an hour conversation. And then he went away. He wrote the copy for me. He got the music together, and then I came back and recorded it. And then he gave me his demo that he produced, and it just completely changed everything. Like that demo got me my agent. That demo still showcases me, I think, in the best way possible. I may update it in another couple of years just because every, 5-10 years or so, or whatever the time frame is, trends change with voiceover in
Yeah,
every format, like animation, commercial, all that. Trends are just shifting all the time based on what people are liking to hear. But right now, it's working really well, and I really like it. And it's the thing on my website, so it's the thing that I am proud of to show people. And I did my animation demo with him as well, so that's more character-y work.
very nice. Yeah, I want to get into some voiceover work. I thought maybe that would be an angle to start off with, where you just kind of record, like pick your top favorite voices and then try to make it sound as best you can and just go from there.
Yeah, and it's good to just kind of get in the mindset of knowing how the tech works anyway, especially now, because the demand for home studios that's just normal now. That used to be kind of like, if you have one, that's great.
Yeah.
But now for my work, I've been about half and half, I'd say, split between studio work versus home studio work. But it's good to know kind of going in what your skill set is with the tech that you're working with. That's what you're going to need to do now with voiceover.
Do you have a little station set up in your house and everything where it's all soundproofed and whatnot?
I do. I am standing in a closet at this very moment. I've completely shattered the illusion of my amazing studio. No, it's just a walk-in closet. And a lot of voice actors have similar setups. Really, the thing is there's sort of this, I know that there's sometimes like a prestige that can come with like a really nice looking studio or really great looking setup. But as long as the mic sounds great and your voice is resonating well and there's not a lot of echo and things are, as long as it sounds broadcast ready, no matter what the setting, then you're good. For me, I'm in my closet and I have a bunch of bass traps that are around me, which are these big, thick panels of foam basically against wood. And then I have some sound foam in here. And then I have a mic that I love. And there's actually carpet underneath me because I have hardwood floors in my closet. Anything to just eliminate the reverberating sound.
Yeah.
So that's what you're hearing now.
It's crisp and clear.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
For me, when I was a kid, I too was doing voices and impressions all the time.
Yeah.
When people tell you a lot of the time, hey, you're really good at some of these voices and stuff, then you just start to think, you're like, wow, maybe I should keep practicing and move
Yeah.
forward in this avenue.
Yeah.
It was funny because when I first started off, I was doing voices of characters that nowadays not a lot of people know, like Droopy Dog,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
the cartoon dog. I would do him. Now, he's different because a good amount of people know him, but I don't know if you remember this show called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Robin Leach.
I know the show. I'm not familiar with episodes, but I know about the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was the host, and he was another voice that I could do, but it's just funny
Oh,
because
great.
I have certain characters and people that I can do voices of that aren't really relevant anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess I gotta go back to the drawing board.
No, it's okay, and, the thing that I love is even if it's an obscure thing that no one knows, sometimes it's a great character just built in, and that's something that
Yeah.
really freed me up as far as because daily, when I audition, I have to create characters based off of, like, here's the drawing, here's where they live, here's what they sound like, here's a reference of what we think he may sound like kind of, but don't do it exact going back to The Simpsons, Dan Castellaneta, when he created Homer, I've watched a video, he said a lot of it was based off of or part of it was based off of Walter Matthau and how he talked. And then he said that's kind of where the basis of the voice began. And then the presentational, big, out loud element to Homer's voice is
Mhm.
his dad, actually. He said his dad would take them on road trips and he would point out, like, a great big American tour. Like, right over there, we have the where the pioneers settled, that kind of stuff. So you can kind of hear where in the voice. And then one extra element that I discovered was for me personally, this is just my voice, but Homer's voice kind of sits in the three-quarters of the way through me yawning. That's where Homer's voice is, that part of my throat. If I were to yawn, go, "Oh," like that, you'd hear the full sound. Oh, if I had stopped right there, then Homer sits right about where that's my impression of him. But so it's fun stuff like that. Even if it doesn't sound like that, it still could be another character that you could work around or act through. So there's so much possibility.
That's a pretty spot on Homer, I must say.
Well, thanks.
When you go into an audition or when you submit an audition, if they don't give you much direction for the voice, if they're just like, "Hey, here's the character, you kinda goof around and give me some voices," do you come up with multiple ones that are completely opposite from each other?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So it depends on the audition. Most of the time, I will go with the first thing and or the strongest thing that I can offer. Just because while I want to believe, and while a lot of us want to believe that all the auditions that are sent in are listened to 100% of the way through, that's usually not the case.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 seconds into an audition before they say next. For a character, especially for an animated character or a video game, especially if it's a big one, they're pretty much by default getting, 150, 200 or more versions of this character. And there's just no time to listen to 200 minutes of, the same character and nail it down. You have to capture them right away with one, your acting, most important, and two, like an interesting voice that's something they may not have thought about because sometimes they don't know what they want, which is why the description is small sometimes. So I tend to go with something that, like, okay, what if it's like nothing, I kind of just let my imagination expand a little bit and think about, okay, what types of characters kind of fit with this. A lot of stuff too is giving it pre-life, I think, is one thing that I typically do. If there's room for it, I'll give the character its laugh before I
Yeah.
start the line. Just something that differentiates you from the rest of the pack is good. Giving them a laugh, giving them an elongated way of saying a word, giving them a different inflection that's not typical of this phrase, something like that. One character I did was I don't remember the exact character, but the description was fatherly, mentor-ish, very smart guy, a big guy, kind of like knows what he's talking about, seems intimidating from his physical stature, but would never hurt anybody, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
And there's a real person in my life that I know that's just like that. His name is Bill. He's a good friend of mine, and he's actually the voice of Disneyland Park. So if you go to Disneyland and you hear
Oh,
"Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls," that's Bill doing that. And he's been doing it for 31 years, I think now, or 30 years.
wow.
Yeah, 1991 is when so yeah, 30 years. But I thought, oh well, I have nothing to base this off of for as far as what they're giving me. But I know that Bill has a lot of these categories in his just way of being and just how he speaks and who he is. Doesn't even have to try, he just is that. And so this is where I put the character because it's sort of like Bill, but I got a little bit of myself in there. And, we're trying to teach kids because it's a kids show. So maybe slow it down, have things spaced out, but still have fun with it. So it's that kind of stuff that I think about when I'm breaking it down, if there's nothing to go off of.
Yeah. Going back to, like, when you and I were both young and we were doing voices to impress people and everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Not together because I didn't know you when you were that young, but
Right. Right. Yes. No, you were there. I know you were there.
I was there in spirit. I told you I'm Luke Skywalker, so I was always there.
I knew I could feel.
Yeah. Did you have any actors that you would look as a role model in that aspect? For me, I really liked listening to all the different voices that Robin Williams could do. He was
Oh, yeah.
one of my heroes. I mean, he still is.
Right, right.
He was a big inspiration when it came to doing different voices. I mean, just pick any of his movies and you're going to hear like 10 different voices in each movie.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you have a person that you looked up to?
I think I did, but I didn't know who they were at the time. You know, when I was a kid, I remember I loved like you, I loved Robin Williams. I loved the Animaniacs a lot, even though
Yeah,
I know who those people are now, but I didn't know at the time. I remember Space Jam was a big one. I loved all the voices in that because it's the Looney Tune characters.
yeah.
Again, no idea who these people were. I remember I loved Doug is one that I loved quite a bit. I loved all the different kids in that. Like I liked Doug's voice. I liked the nerdy twins, Roger, Skeeter, all those
Yeah.
anything with a lot of contrast drew my ear in pretty quickly. So like those kinds of shows, like Hey Arnold was another one. A lot of Nickelodeon cartoons and Cartoon Network cartoons. There were just a lot of really interesting, really different people. And then when I got later in my career, there are specific people that I love. Bob Bergen is a friend of mine and a phenomenal voice talent and one of my teachers. He's been the voice of Porky Pig for 30 years, something like that, some amazing amount of time.
Oh, okay.
He's done that, but then also really fun random stuff. He's the voice, I think the official voice double for Mark Hamill because he was like Luke in the Robot Chicken Star Wars stuff.
Oh, okay.
He's done a lot of that, and he's also the squirrel in The Emperor's New Groove, which is another movie I love, another Disney movie I love.
Yeah.
His versatility is incredible. So him, Corey Burton, another one of my favorites. He's the voice of Captain Hook. He's the voice of the Haunted Mansion Holiday
Ah,
at Disneyland. He's done a lot of video game, thousands and thousands of animated projects. I mean, I could name. I'm forgetting a bunch, but there's a lot that I love. So as a kid, it really wasn't any specific, I don't think, person, but it was just any show that had a lot of different sounds coming at me all at one time in fun ways was always really cool. And I
yeah.
would always try to copy it. For example, like the 50 States song that Wacko sings in Animaniacs. That's cool because there's music and he's got a weird voice, and I'm down for it.
I always liked Wacko's voice because it reminded me of Ringo Starr. I don't know if he actually was loosely making it sound like him or not, but that's why I always loved Wacko, as
Yeah,
my favorite in that show.
your ear is very good because that is exactly what he was doing.
Oh, good.
An impression of the Beatles, and it was placed in a higher pitch. That's where the voice came from. So yes, it was completely inspired by the Beatles. He's got an interview about it.
Oh, sweet. Since you work with Disney and stuff like that too, my favorite main Disney character would probably be Goofy.
Oh yeah,
I loved watching a Goofy movie. That's probably easily one of my favorite all-time movies.
it is so good, so good.
I think it was about 4 years ago, I went to pretty sure it was WonderCon down in LA, and I just so happened to be able to meet Bill Farmer. He's the voice
Oh
of
man,
Goofy.
wow, what was that like?
It was so cool because, first of all, we got there was no line because he was at lunch, and by the
Yeah,
time we got there, he was just coming back from lunch, so we were the first ones there. We didn't even, have to wait any bit, it was just perfect
yeah.
timing, but he gets there and, I bought a picture autograph of him and stuff. It's a picture of Max and Goofy.
Oh cool, nice.
Since he didn't have a line, it was myself and a friend of mine, we were able to just kinda shoot the shit with him for a few minutes, and
Oh man, that's the greatest.
I told him, "Between you and me, you've always been my favorite. I never really liked Mickey Mouse." And then, of course, he does, "Gorge."
Yeah, right. Awesome.
Well, and then he even told me how he did some of the voices in Space Jam as well.
That's right. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, he totally did.
He was so nice, so laid back and relaxed, and before I left, I didn't even ask him, he asked me, he's like, "Hey, would you like a picture as well?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that would be great." So, I got a picture with Bill Farmer.
Wow, man, hold on to that. That's great.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
If you could pick anything, maybe I'm being too vague with this question, but if you
Okay.
could pick anything to voice, what would you want to voice?
Oh man,
If that's too vague, we can narrow it down to, Disneyland or something.
no, 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 that's fine. No, no, no. I think my biggest dream has always been, well, not always, but I think it kind of honed into. I've loved all the projects I've done and all the companies that I've worked for, and I take any work I can get because I love it so much and I love this work. But I think one thing that's always stuck out is if I could be, in addition to other things that I'm doing, if I could somehow be, and I don't know who this would be, but there's a department at the Disney Studios that's been around since 1989 called Disney Character Voices. And this department is in charge of the various actors that are the voice of Disney characters throughout the Disney pantheon. And the reason it was created is to make sure there was consistency and integrity to all the characters and all of their voices throughout all mediums. So like any parade or show or TV show or toy, anything that has this character's voice, it's one person until that person is retired or is no longer on this earth, or something, if they move on to something else. But if I could be part of that group doing something, being the voice, an official voice of a character in Disney, or now that Marvel is here, like Marvel or Star Wars or whatever, that's the top for me. Because just to know that I'm part of that group, Like Bill is part of that group because he is the voice of Goofy. But to be part of that group, I think is probably my dream.
That's something I heard a while ago where if you're a voice of something for Disney, chances are you're pretty much that voice for life. And that's cool
Yeah.
that they do that. It's cool for the actor because he's always going to get consistent work per se. But
Right.
also it's cool because if you're a little kid and you're listening to Goofy or something, and then you watch something else and it's Goofy again, but it doesn't sound quite right, it kind of
Right.
ruins the imagination.
It does. And, kids I found are extremely intuitive when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't seem like they are just because they're kind of all over the place sometimes and they're really imaginative, but
Yeah.
they lock into the heart of a character faster than I think anybody else does. Like, they know who it is, they can tell.
Yeah.
The fact that there's somebody that is, and that's why I'm in this, honestly, is to create characters that mean something to people. And so the fact that Disney has that piece of that company that makes sure that that stays intact, I think is really cool. So again, that just solidifies my reasoning of why I would love to be part of Disney character voices. And also they have really cool jacket that I've seen and I really want it. So
Oh, nice. Is there anything you're working on aside from Thrillogram that you want to plug in?
so badly, but I can't. There's one thing that I've been working on for like a year and a half, and I'm
Yeah.
so bummed. I do not want to come off as like, oh, it's secret and I'm not going to tell you. No, it's literally I want to keep the job that I have. So there are a lot of really cool things that are coming, and I'm very proud to be in them. So hopefully at some point once they're out, if I can talk to you again, I would love to talk about how it happened.
When do you expect these things to come out?
These things, I think good chunk of them will be summertime-ish. So, like, it's gonna be a minute, but around then or after then, that's probably when it'll happen, and then there's something else that I don't think is till next year, so, like, it's gonna be a minute before, but work is happening, it's good. Around then, I would love to talk again, and I can tell you all about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Isaac, for being on the show. Always a pleasure talking with you, my friend.
Yes, yes. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And that's Dumb Talks. Thanks again for listening. Be sure to subscribe at the bottom for future episodes. Who knows? Maybe I'll be talking with you next.